So Arknights Endfield has been released in some form or way to the public. I'm not too sure if this is the full release or a beta, but there's a lot of videos I saw that came out talking about the game. This one seems very full. Everybody else is like 10, 15, 20 minutes. This one is a whole 30. The truth of Arknights Endfield after 80 hours. That's a lot of time. So let's see what Gacha Gamer has to say about Arknights Endfield. Let's check it out.
So
Alright.
I spent around 80 hours playing Arknights Endfield. I have created strongest gear in the game, cleared all the current content, tried out most of the characters.
Okay.
Of course, I also built some massive factories. In these past few days, I've been going through the daily grind loop, including Endgame itself.
What's it like?
I gotta say, to me, this is going to be the most daunting video I ever had to make because Endfield is massive, which has its own pros and cons. Like, even after 30 hours, I was still learning new tutorials, mostly about factory management. But
you know, that sounds good. After 30 hours and there's still more to do, it's a big game.
There's just so much stuff you can do. And
That's
so
good.
in this video, I want to talk about Endfield's gameplay, difficulty, actual endgame, and a lot more, including some spicy topics. Keep in mind, my opinion here is based on the second closed beta test.
Hey, look at this badass bear with a jacket.
So if you're watching this from the future, hi, and things might be different from the global version.
Oh, for sure.
I believe after spending so much time, I think I can finally give it a fair assessment. So let me show you what the actual gameplay looks like so you can get the full picture. Basically, the game is made up of three major mechanics. There's combat, which has a few unique twists, exploration, which interestingly enough puts a big emphasis on developing every single zone by allowing you to add technology to it, and then of course we have the whole base building aspect, which involves creating factories for things you will need to produce in order to progress in the game.
This seems kind of fun.
I'm aware that not everyone will fancy the factory management part of the game, and some might wonder how much do you need to interact with it? Well, I can actually answer that question, but I'll talk about this a lot more later in the video. Now, as for the story, it's set in Arknights universe. You know, the most popular tower defense gacha game on the market. However, I will not be commenting too much on the similarities because, honestly, I only played Arknights a lot when it launched, and there are some familiar faces like Chen showing up, but it's not the same Chen, so yeah. All I can say is that you don't need to know.
They clone themselves?
Showing up, but it's not the same Chens.
They clone themselves into the future. Okay.
So
interesting.
Yeah,
that's interesting in itself,
you don't
to be
need
honest.
To know anything about original Arknights. This story is self-contained and set in the future, but I imagine veteran players of Arknights will recognize Easter eggs and other stuff. Anyway, you as the main character wake up from deep slumber spanning hundreds of years with typical amnesia. I swear, gacha games and their amnesias is just a meme at this point. However, there is a twist. This isn't the first time the MC woke up. Usually this happens when there is a great crisis happening, so now your job is to become—
I ain't gonna lie, that boss looks absolutely amazing.
MC woke up. Usually this happens when there is a great crisis happening, so now your job is to become a savior yet again. In fact, at some points of the story, characters even comment about MC's past actions, such as this flower that was planted by you long time ago. But yeah, you join once again Endfield Industries, a company whose sole purpose is to expand the frontiers of humanity, meaning you're here to industrialize the world, baby. Oh, and since you're the leader, everyone calls you Administrator, or simply Endman, and you spend most of the time together with Chen and Perlica, the members of Endfield. By the way, you can choose gender at the start, but shortly after, you always have the option to swap between it. Now, there are actual stakes in the plot right from the beginning. The big bad is called Neferith, and her sole purpose is to use the power of ether to corrupt the world. There's also this gooey thing called the Blight, which will be the central theme throughout the game, and it has terrible ramifications for the humanity if you don't take care of it. However, I would say the overall theme of the story is quite grand because essentially your goal as of now is to make sure civilization survives by bringing modern technology to it, almost like it's Dr. Stone storytelling.
First thing that came to mind. Yeah, it seems like Dr. Stone, right?
But you don't start from the Stone Age. There is tech, but you must either research better alternatives, rediscover, or repair it. Oh, and all of this is happening on the planet called Talos 2. What happens to Talos 1, you might ask? Well, you're looking at it right now. This big boy right here. Who knows, maybe we'll visit it in the future updates. But
does that look okay? Does that look normal? Looks sick.
And I especially enjoyed it in the first major region called Valley 4. Although afterwards, things slowed down a little in the next region, Wuling. But to be fair, it seems to be not finalized yet, and not all of the story during the CBT was available, that's for sure. Also, I gotta say, English voice acting by the main cast is phenomenal, and the music, oh man. One thing I remember from OG Arknights is the beautiful OST, and Endfield composers delivered some bangers. But besides that, I won't be talking anymore about the plot to avoid spoilers. So let's go through the actual gameplay now. And starting with
You know, overall, that sounds pretty fair, right? Do we have this new world? We have new stuff to do, and there's overarching goal is to make sure that this planet is up to some type of standard for Talos 1. Cool.
combat, you get to control one
I wonder
unit
how it
actively,
changes.
while other 3 teammates are controlled by the AI. Sort of. You see, they just spam basic attacks mindlessly, and it's up to you to trigger the rest of their kits. The whole team shares a resource called skill points, short for SP, and you can trigger anyone's skill by pressing a button. On keyboard, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Once any unit's ultimate is filled, you hold down that same button, and they will unleash it. Most important of all, every unit has a combo skill, which gets triggered under certain conditions, and their portrait will pop up, which gives you time to react.
Like Zenless Zone Zero.
On keyboard, you'd press E button. For example, Perlica's combo skill triggers when your active unit delivers Final Strike. Oh, and yeah, with on-field unit, you can just hold down the attack button, and they will just perform their entire attack string with final hit called, well, Final Strike. On top of that, enemies have these white stagger bars. If you break it, they will then become stunned, and you can deliver a finishing attack, which usually deals good amount of damage. Finally, you can also dodge, and by performing perfect dodges, you will recover a small amount of SP. So you better watch what the enemy is doing, because even in the endgame as of now, most of the teams I've tried out always want as much SP as possible. And
this is literally like the combination of every other gacha action game, right? So Zenless Zone Zero has the have your character show up and attack, and they also have this stagger system. We also have an ability, if you dodge at the right moment, you get XP. Like, yeah, this sounds like very modern, and it's taking every piece of all these other games that did it individually and put it together. So that's good. This is what I like to see. What did they add to make it very unique to them, though?
a lot of rotations depend on you unleashing those battle skills with SP to trigger other units' combos or kits. Now there's also an elemental system of sorts. As of now, damage is categorized as physical, heat, electric, cryo, nature, and ether. But I haven't seen any ether units yet. Still, physical is its own separate thing, while the rest of the elements are counted as arts damage. All of physical skills initially apply vulnerable, which by itself does nothing, but follow-up physical skills can then apply statuses such as lift, knockdown, crush, and breach, which can be starting like Warframe. And honestly, this whole interaction reminds me of Xenoblade Chronicles games. For example, with this team, Chen helps lift the enemy into the air after I use both her skill and combo, then this panda dude unleashes knockdown, and finally his combo triggers and he can crush the enemy. So physical teams have their own interesting status system. But as for actual elements, you can either stack their statuses together, and until 4 stacks, each same element will just trigger additional damage. But whenever you apply a different element onto existing one, the one you applied will have their own reaction. So like, doesn't matter what element the enemy had, but when Ardelia applied nature status from her skill, corrosion is triggered and the enemy will lose resistance against all elements. It's an interesting like Warframe, literally Warframe. Even if it's nothing too groundbreaking. But my favorite thing about combat was this feeling like I was an orchestrator. You don't swap between units, although you have the option to do it, but the point is to coordinate everyone's skills, combos, and ultimates, while also keeping an eye on the SP bar, so you can deliver more skills, while at the same time, you also have to make sure to dodge enemy attacks. I'ma be honest, a lot of skill checks. I felt a bit overwhelmed. There's just too much stuff happening on the screen, especially if teammates have flashier abilities, and it's hard to see what the heck the enemy is doing. But I did get used to it after a while. Still, there's one cool thing I haven't mentioned about AI teammates. They actually have some cool interactions. For example, they will pick up any items the enemy dropped. They help out when I'm tending farming fields. If I sit out on the bench, they will join me. Sometimes they talk between themselves. It's also funny when you try to admire units from behind and they give you the no-no sign. So even if they mindlessly perform basic attacks and wait for my orders to use abilities, they do feel alive outside combat. But yeah, with the combat out of the way, let's talk about exploration.
So when it comes to combat, definitely enjoying what I saw. It literally looks like the modern gacha art action game. I'm liking it, and I like how they have these different statuses just like in Warframe, man. Like, and it sounds like there's so many different skill checks that Endgame has to be absolutely insane. Like, you gotta definitely lock in on some of these bosses that I gotta see them too. Like, one of those boss designs look really good. I'm wondering if there's a dragon though.
Now, I've seen people online calling Endfield an open world game, but the truth is, it's
open hub?
semi-open, or more like it has really large zones interconnected. For example, there is no way to cross from first region to the second one, other than teleporting by using the map, and even some zones can be reached without first crossing another one. But man, I gotta hand it to the developers. This game looks incredibly beautiful. The vistas, locations, environment design. Despite the fact I'm an anime girl running around like I just don't care, I did feel like everything fit together well in terms of art direction. It is a bit sad though that the game is locked to 60 FPS on PC, especially when I'm playing on my 4K monitor.
Unlock it.
Hopefully this will change in the future. Still, you can expect to see some typical exploration stuff such as secrets, puzzles, collectibles, side quests, and chests. But the level design of each zone felt like it encouraged me to experiment, because even if you can't climb and you can only do a single jump, most of the stuff you see, you can get on top of it by jumping. And sometimes I was able to ignore the actual path and just take a shortcut by positioning a good jump. However, the best and the most unique thing about exploration is the development of each zone. I call it development because basically from the main hub and few outposts you unlock, you can start extending electricity by placing these relays. There's a big relay and a smaller one which transmits electricity in an area, and it can enable various constructions. The most important one being the mining drills. So if you see some ore deposits, you first need to drag the electricity line all the way from the nearest relay, and then the ore gets drilled and transferred to your depot. You can see on the map all the relays and their connections I've built. It's really fun.
It's massive, man.
And often to unlock certain doors or gates, you also need electricity first. On top of that, you can also build zip lines around the zones, which makes traversal much faster. And
now it's also looking like Death Stranding.
You can even create shortcuts between areas that would otherwise take you minutes to reach.
This is great. I like this.
That you can deploy,
create the traversal.
All kinds of shapes and sizes. And so if you encounter a strong enemy, you can just blast them away with modern firepower, which is actually something that I'm doing right now with my 12 turrets that I've placed here. And I farmed this spot for endgame resources. But there's another cool twist. Other players' structures will also show up in your world, and vice versa. You can even connect to other players' zip lines, which can save you some time. In fact, I was able to reach some story-gated areas by simply connecting my zipline to the one that spawned from another player. But there's also
snap. So people can really help you get to like end game type of stuff without you having to do it yourself. Honestly, I like it. I like it as an idea, like literally implementing people that know the game well. Like whoever made it to that spot just became a lifesaver. Like if there was a way to commend it, like in the Soul series or in Death Stranding, because I know in Death Stranding, if you use somebody else's equipment, you can like give it a like. I hope they have that system involved as well.
Stuff like storage depots, signposts, and even treads will appear as well. This kind of reminds me of Death Stranding, where everyone together is building the world to make it more efficient. I love this. Overall, the coolest part of the exploration is by polluting all with your tech. I've built so many power lines, which can even be placed inside caves with smaller relays to carry the electricity, and I enjoyed the fact I can nuke down stronger enemies than me by just deploying some turrets. Everyone's map will look different because everyone will be placing the structures all over the place, and you will want to create zipline traversal because when it comes to daily loop, which I'll talk about in a moment, you will need to run around a lot collecting various regenerating resources. So having a good zipline infrastructure is key to saving your time.
Sounds good.
Alright, I think now is a good time to talk about factory management because it makes up, I would say, roughly half of the gameplay. I will be honest though, I'm gonna try to be as unbiased as possible, but you should know that I put in hundreds of hours into games like Satisfactory, Factorio, and many more. 180? I enjoy these types of games, but I will say this. On a scale from 1 to 10 compared to other base building and automation titles, I would say the complexity level in Endfield is about a 5. So this means it's pretty simple. Super complex, since all you're really working with are a bunch of belts to transport goods between other processing units, when compared to something like Satisfactory, where you not only have to plan belt routes from ore sites, but also have to build 3D bases, consider elevation, and there's like 100 more interactions you can do with resources. Here, you essentially work with 3 types of ores, and then there's also plants you can grow and combine together. Later on in the new region, you unlock water transportation too. On top of that, you also need to consider electricity usage, but it's very easy to maintain it, and powering up the constructions is also quite simple. You just plop down this relay around them, and they start working. Again, maybe I'm biased because I've seen these mechanics in much more complex forms in other factory type games. I will be frank though, there is definitely a learning curve. And by that, I mean even after 4 days of playing, tutorials would still keep popping up for new construction types. It is a bit jarring when you go from action-packed combat to this, frankly, very dry tutorial. And you will especially feel it in the first few hours of the game. To me, this is not a problem because I also teach and play board games, and sometimes I have to learn all the rules from a tome like this. So again, you cannot trust my judgment here, when I literally could spend a whole day learning board game rules, and I find it to be fun. Now, you might be thinking, well, how much do you need to interact with base building? The answer is, it depends. Every single construction has its own dedicated but not mandatory tutorial, and if you go through it, you are provided with a blueprint, so you can just use that, and you won't have to come up with your own solutions. For example, can you get those online? Processing blueprint is already good enough, and you could easily just use that. Although you could absolutely devise a lot more optimized production line, such as this one on the left I made myself. And on top of that, once the game goes global, I'm sure there will be tons of tutorials on YouTube you could just copy and have super optimized factory. But you can go into this nifty planning mode.
Bro, I already see it, bro. Most optimized factory, Arknights Endfield.
So you don't have to run around with the character, and literally all of the base building can be done from this screen, including moving constructions, copying them, and even creating your very own blueprints of complex production lines you've made. And as I said,
you can share them online.
There's a lot of ways you can optimize everything, which
directly,
you can always check
or
by
only
going
on
to this
YouTube
menu here, which shows all yield and consume results. So if you see the blue graph go up, that means your optimization is working. Yay! But you might be asking now.
As soon as the chart goes up, neurons activate. Buy, sell.
You've got all of these massive factories set up. What are they actually producing? Well, starting with the most crucial one, the gear. That's right, all the gear is produced at your base. There's gray, green, blue, purple, and then finally gold gear. Each of them requires specific resources, and the gear itself is not randomized, and all of the gear besides gold can be created really fast. And for your main team of 4 units, it will take less than an hour to get them outfitted with each new gear tier, except gold. You see, gold gear first of all needs a special forge, and in the CBT, you can only place 2 of them, and roughly speaking, I think right now at most, it's possible to produce 1 gold gear per hour. So since all characters need 4 pieces, that's 16 hours for one team.
That's insane. What the heck? What? Bro, I'd rather just farm for 5 hours and get everything done. What is this?
Luckily, your factories keep working even when you're offline, which is kind of amazing since every day I logged back, I had this rush of dopamine knowing my base produced all this stuff while I was away.
Bro, that's how they keep you coming back, bro. This is like Clash of Clans all over again.
So really, it takes 1 day or so to get gold gear.
Oh my gosh, one IRL day, bro.
Let's talk about some RNG. So this only applies to gold gear, but the 3 substats each one has can be improved by feeding the same gear to it. However, there's a chance the enhancement fails, and you'll only get a small refund. Not only that, you also need a special item to feed the dupe, and in the CBT, as of right now, it's not possible to do it. So theoretically, yes, you can obtain all gold gear within a day, but how long it takes to max out its substats is totally up to chance. I don't believe the growth differs from each dupe you feed, so it's only a matter of time before the gold gear can reach its full potential. Now, besides the gear, you will need processed materials to create turrets, healing items, even some exploration tools like this firebomb that blows up obstacles and opens up new paths. Some of the processed or raw goods will also be required by outposts. These are separate bases from your main hub, where you also can create factories, but at the same time, each outpost can be leveled by exchanging your goods with their stock bills. And these stock bills, they are a regional currency you use to buy from vendor shops, and most importantly, to buy stuff from this funny looking rabbit. You can buy things like gifts for characters, leveling materials, and 5-star weapons. Although keep in mind, rarest weapons are 6 stars. But here's the interesting part. The majority of stock bills you can earn actually comes from other activities. Like, you need some of it at start by selling produced goods to outposts, but the rabbit has this activity called elastic goods, where you buy a bunch of items and then go to your friends list and check who will buy for highest. The actual player doesn't spend
oh my gosh, bro. We're buying and selling crypto.
Bills. It's just an innocent buy low, sell high type of minigame.
Crypto!
You can earn some ridiculous amounts of bills by quickly getting something for cheap and reselling it to your friend.
Hey man, they teaching people how to do economics.
On top of that, there are other activities like depot runs, where you have to fill a package with your factory produced goods, usually the easiest to produce resource or even just raw stuff.
It's the
like
Amazon simulator.
And then you have to run a little bit to the delivery place and obtain tons of bills from this task. It seems like you can also outsource other players to do this package delivery, but I wasn't able to do that on the beta. Finally, in Wuling region, there's a weekly activity where you just take photos and obtain tons of bills. Like, the truth is, you could set up a couple of production lines on your base, create gear producing factory, and then earn the rest of the bills with elastic goods and depot minigames. To me, this felt like you're not super forced into creating optimized base, and the majority of earnings will come from daily activities. So overall, base management at the start will feel quite overwhelming, especially if you've never played this type of game. On the flip side, it's not some watered down version of it. There's a lot of cool ways you can optimize your factories, and there's a sense of accomplishment and dopamine rush when you log in after a while and see all those resources and items that your base has created. Keep in mind, there is a limit to how much stuff you can have of each goods type. It gets increased the more you develop the base, but so far, it didn't feel too restrictive, aside from the hard cap on how fast you can produce gold gear, which I hope will be addressed when the game goes global. Oh, and I guess I should mention there's a tech tree for base building, although it's super easy to max it out by just collecting these funny inflatable tube guys. But let's move over now, and let me introduce you to the daily loop, because boy oh boy, this is where things start to get...
So the base building sounds really fun. It does seem like something like you could really sink hours into, like just trying to make it better. And even if it's like not the most optimized, right? Any type of customization, like creating a base, is always good for player expression, especially if you could share these bases with other people. That's, yeah, like I can see hella meme bases going crazy on the internet. Overall, looks nice. I'll give it like an 8.9 on how much I'd personally enjoy it just by watching this. Let's continue.
Rough. So far, I counted 9 tasks I would have to get through each day, and I'm not kidding here, but first few days, these dailies took me like an hour plus to get it done. You can see the list of things shown here, but some of the most time-consuming tasks involve these recycling stations with a cute owl. They recharge every day, and every single zone has at least one of them. You cannot teleport or claim it from the menu. You need to interact with it directly.
They need to update that.
Recycling stations offer ship upgrade parts, which I didn't talk about yet, but you also own a spaceship, which you can board and manage a couple of rooms which passively produce leveling materials, and you can assign characters to them. On the flip side, I did max out the ship eventually, meaning I don't have to do these owl stations anymore. But then there's ascension materials, which need to be collected from various places around the regions, and they have separate timers. Think of them like flowers in Genshin or WoWa. I mean, sure, if you don't care too much, you can leave them by, but at the start, every character needs same type of flower and ore to raise the cap of their levels, skills, and weapons. To be fair, you can grow a little bit of these materials on the ship, but it's way more faster to just grab them from the map. Then comes the daily elastic goods trading, depot runs, and outpost management. And on top of that, you also want to spend the stamina, which in a typical manner lets you obtain leveling materials and these essences, which I'll get into in a moment. Finally, you also have some daily missions, but in reality, they usually are completed when you're done with other tasks. Look, the thing about the daily loop, it starts out grindy and long, but I noticed it becomes shorter and shorter every day, since by that time, I deployed zip lines all over my usual routes, some of the stuff was no longer needed, and overall, I would say at the beginning it will be quite consuming, but 1 week into it, that 1 hour becomes around 15 to 20 minutes, if that makes sense. As for the...
You have to invest, and then eventually you'll hit the snowball effect. Yeah, this happens in everything, man. If you put enough time and attention, it'll eventually snowball and become worth it, depending on what it is.
The endgame, this honestly surprised me because there is no specific endgame mode. Technically, there's this place called Escape Salvage, which gets introduced quite early. It kind of works like an extraction mode, where you have to get as many resources and explore as much as possible before you become corrupted and get ejected. It didn't seem that challenging, but it was an interesting idea I enjoyed checking out. Other than that, there are activities which involve getting these high-end ascension materials, since character's level cap is 99, and at least during this CBT, I was not able to reach it yet because it costs so much, and will take a while. That is also something I remember from OG Arknights, where fully maxing out Operator to Elite Rank 2 was a time-consuming goal, but it felt quite rewarding once you did it. There are also 3 bosses you can challenge for some extra rewards, and those high-end Ascension mats, but they felt more like a farming target, since last stage of each boss consumes stamina. Also, quick note on the stamina system, which the game calls it Sanity, another nod to OG Arknights. I don't like it that much because, one, if you want to refresh it, it's only possible to do it with origiometry currency, which is super scarce and exclusive compared to other currency called Oro-Barrel. I know refreshing stamina isn't something everyone does, but it should really just cost Oro-Barrel instead. And two, to claim double the rewards for double the stamina, you must consume these tickets, which are only available as of now from the Battle Pass. Big no-no. Should be just something you could make in a factory, to be honest. On the bright side, you can use the premium origiometry currency, which you earn from main storyline and collectibles to unlock an advanced...
What's inside the Battle Pass? Is it... It doesn't look like anything crazy. We'll see.
Premium origiometry currency, which you earn from main storyline and collectibles to unlock an advanced tier of Battle Pass, which includes a free 6-star weapon selector, and you get back 31 of this currency compared to 29 you had to spend. Finally, the last thing would be essence farming from this energy alluvium activity. So basically, every weapon can be slotted with one essence, and that essence at highest tier will have 3 random stat lines. The last one being particularly interesting because it essentially helps increase the weapon's passive ability. For example, this essence I've got gives plus 3 levels to the featured weapon I pulled. So it's like having 3 extra copies of it. Well, kind of, but that's how it works. And yeah, it costs stamina. However, since it's all RNG, you can consume these engraving permits, which can be purchased, I believe, every week or so from the Rabbit shop. And these engravings help narrow down the stat lines of the essence. Not completely, but it is super useful.
Makes it easier.
However, if that's not enough, you can feed other essences into the one you want to use by using this Etch Essence system. And you can further improve to some extent that specific essence. But just like with
not
the
100%.
gear, the result is not guaranteed. And I had to waste a lot of essences. On the bright side, every failure grants 10 of these coolant shells, and then 60, 120, and 240 can be used to perform guaranteed upgrade. So it's like a pity system. Overall, this essence farming will be quite a grindy process. And as you can see, one of the stat lines do not match my weapon. So in reality, I shouldn't have spent all the other essences upgrading it, but I did it for science. Still, as you can see, because of gold gear and essences, the game has a good amount of RNG involved. And I would say it's not the worst, but I do not like the fact engravings are time gated. And while I can't comment on gold gear dupe system, it's also clear there's some kind of gating involved. I mean, look, it's quite likely that this CBT just didn't have Endgame introduced, and right now, raising characters to max potential seems more like a vanity project since I can pretty much clear any stamina stage or boss with my level 80 team. Perhaps the devs will introduce it later into the game's life cycle, and they want players to focus more on creating a prosperous factory. Like, there's already a ton of gameplay each day, so at the moment, after nearly 1 week, I don't really have this urge yet to delve into some super difficult endgame, but I gotta worry about my factory declining in power because I somehow used up all my supply of batteries. Still, I mentioned I can pretty much clear all the stuff. However, I would say when it comes to the difficulty of the game, I think this word has 2 meanings here. The difficulty of fighting through tons of tutorials is one thing, and then the actual difficulty of combat. I would say for the most part, if you have a healer or stock up on healing items, it's fine, but there have been a few cases where my team got wiped. It's not a super challenging game, but I did encounter some really aggressive enemies that also hit like a ton of bricks, so dodging is key. I also kind of spent a lot of time thinking about my teams. At first, I ran this physical comp, which was fun, but then I got lucky and pulled the featured heat unit and built a mono heat comp. And they just cut through everything like it's made of butter. I also made sure to keep my gear up to date, invested as much as possible into units, so overall, without this effort, the enemy would deal a ton more damage, while your team's damage would hit them like a fluffy toy. Okay, let's finally explore the core component of the game, the gacha system.
Honestly, so far, when it comes to that gearing system and like having the RNG, I like that they have hard pity on it. I think that's one of the big things. Like when it comes to gacha games, like if you don't have hard pity on the pools, it's a money pit. And also seeing that they have hard pity for equipment, that's really, really good. So min-maxing, it's not a money pit either. You know, it's not a time pit as much, but it's definitely resource heavy, which I guess it should be. You know, it's, you know, you're changing the gear and you're trying to rig the RNG, but then again, you could also say, why not have guaranteed drops? So, I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments below. Would you rather have RNG or guaranteed drops for like specific gear?
So there's 3 rarity levels: 4-star, 5-star, and 6-star characters. Same goes for weapons. You are guaranteed a 5-star unit every 10 pulls and 6-star every 80 pulls. Soft pity starts increasing after 65 pulls. On the featured banner, there's a 50-50 chance you'll get the rate up unit. However, if you fail, next one is still not guaranteed. Instead, the actual guarantee comes after you make 120 pulls on the banner.
Oh my gosh.
The 120 count does not carry over to the next banner, only the count towards the 80 heart pity. So in a nutshell, if you're a free-to-play player and you want to guarantee the best outcome, you'll have to save up 120 pulls worth of currency and tickets. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend leaving it up to chance.
So how long is that? 3 months of gameplay or what?
Especially when the 120 pull count resets. There's also this 10 pull reward you can get after you summon 60 times on the featured banner, but it will only be usable on the next banner, and it expires after that banner is over. This is kind of like a small rebate for the future, and I would say only treat it like that. Now there's also a beginner's banner which provides 1 random 6-star unit and a 6-star weapon crate selector. All you gotta do is complete a certain amount of story and you get to make 43 pulls total. Afterwards there's the standard banner, and after doing 300 pulls on it, you can select any of the standard 6-star from it. I mean, look, overall I would say the featured banner is pretty steep, but to be honest, Gacha will be Gacha, no matter how good or bad it is. I did get lucky and pulled the featured unit myself, but if I was playing on global with a free-to-play account, I'd see first if I can obtain 120 pulls and then only go for it. And it's hard for me to say how generous this game is with free pulls because it's still a CBT. And while I was able to pull a decent amount of times on the limited banner after playing for 5 days, this was only possible because I opened a lot of chests, puzzles, and other tasks I've completed, which is not renewable. So we'll have to see how generous Endfield devs will be with free pull giveaways. Still, there is a silver lining in all of this. You see, anytime you pull on any character banner, every single summon also provides arsenal tickets currency, and you can then use this currency to pull on the weapon banners. There's a rate up weapon banner for the featured unit and some permanent ones as well. Interestingly enough, you can only perform 10 pulls on them, and if you do 10 pulls, you are guaranteed the rate up weapon. But every 4 10 pulls, you also guarantee a 6-star weapon, with 25% chance being the rate up. However, the 10 pull guarantee does not carry over on featured weapon banner. A 10 pull costs 1980 arsenal tickets, and you obtain 20 from 4-star units you pull, 200 from 5 stars, and 2000 from 6 stars. So essentially, getting a 6-star means you also obtain a free weapon 10 pull. On top of that, there's a weekly rotating shop window here, where you can buy 1 6-star weapon for just 2,480 tickets. So
is that a good deal?
12.5 pull cost. But you immediately get it. Right now, the offered 6-star is amazing for Endman, but I am very curious to see what future 6-stars this shop will offer. And this kind of reminds me of Zur from Destiny. We could buy rotating exotic gear from him each week. I think this shop could be really cool if on some weeks, weapons from past limited banners would show up. And remember, you earn same amount of arsenal tickets from standard banner too. So those tickets I bought from the rabbit basically works as a double currency for both standard banner and extra currency I can use to pull and buy weapons. Oh, and since you'll obtain tons of 4-star unit dupes, they can be exchanged for another currency. Same goes for 5 or 6-star weapons, which provide that same currency, and can then be used in the shop to mostly buy leveling materials. The other tab is, let's just say it's for whales mostly. At the end of the day, if you're going to be free to play, then it's best to go for featured banner if you only have 120 pulls saved. And if you want to guarantee their featured weapon too, then you'll need 15,840 arsenal tickets, which can be saved up from all the unit banners. I would say overall, the unit banners are balanced around the fact you can build up currency for weapons by doing the pulls. Don't get me wrong though, I do wish and hope the devs reconsider adding 120 pity to carry over to future limited banners. There's also this interesting rotation that I don't fully understand yet, but basically the first featured unit would stay inside the featured banner pools for the next 3 banners, and then only afterwards they would be removed from all pools before the next rerun. I like that. We can check out these images, but
I mean, that looks cool, right? Like if you want to save up for a certain character, but you also want this character, I mean, like, sure, just wait for the actual character that you want to come out, and then hopefully with even if you get like bad pity, you still get another character that was probably worth getting anyways, meta-wise.
I'll need to see how this works when the game launches.
It looks cool.
Yeah, hopefully that covers the details of how the gacha works and my thoughts on it. It
Less
definitely
FOMO.
could be better, and while I do like the idea you can double dip into weapons by doing any pulls on unit banners, I'd still prefer the featured banner 120 guarantee carried over. Still, this brings us to the last segment of the video. My overall thoughts about Endfield and the CBT. Well, without beating around the bush, I had so much fun playing it. I think Endfield easily stands out from the rest of high-budget gacha games because, first of all, it's not really an open-world game. The majority of its level design encourages creativity by allowing you to develop each zone to your liking. On top of that, I can literally sense the pride and passion of the developers. They really went hard with high-quality polish. And I think the fans of OG Arknights are going to have a blast with this game. Even as someone who has surface-level knowledge of it, I could see the things directly lifted from the tower defense title, such as character classes, suspiciously familiar faces, which I'm sure there's a lore explanation for that, but there's also the actual tower defense, which you can experience through the outposts. The enemy design is eerily similar, and so on. As for the factory management part, yeah, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, especially considering there is a long learning curve involved. But as I said before, it is not super complex compared to other games of this genre. Once you get the hang of it, everything just clicks, and at least to me, it feels super satisfying when I create a production line and stuff just gets generated passively. Although I do think an easy way to encourage players to learn all the ins and outs can be rectified with the tutorials. They are not mandatory, but can be completed for a bit of rewards. Instead, I think these tutorials should offer like one free pull worth of currency. This way, there's a strong incentive for players to just learn about each construction, while they also get to stock up on pulls afterwards. I don't know, maybe it's a stupid idea, but when I teach board games, I always noticed people pay the most attention when you tell them what are the most beneficial actions they can do. So, roughly speaking, if Endfield base management tutorials could provide good rewards, it maybe would be easier to onboard people to this genre because, let's be honest, it's quite niche compared to the usual stuff like shooters, RPGs, and so on. But yeah, the fusion of really unique exploration, base management, tons of activities, and extremely high polish really made me appreciate this game. I am definitely their target audience because I love all of these things. Oh, and the performance on PC was super smooth, although I do have a high-end PC, but usually those problems show up no matter what PC you're using. However, in Endfield, there were no such problems I experienced. As for mobile or PS5, looks fine. I didn't get to play it on these platforms. Still, I cannot wait until this game is released.
Mobile?
And I hope you enjoyed watching this video.
It's a mobile game?
There's a lot of details I left out, otherwise this would end up an hour-long video, and I do not have the strength to edit all of that without involving sleepless nights. And even this video took like a week to make, so I'd really appreciate it if you could press the like button on it, share it with others, and of course, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Thanks, and see you next time.
So that was really, really good. Shout out to Gacha Gamer for creating this amazing video. And speaking of the gacha, it seems good enough. It doesn't seem very you know, greedy like some other gacha games that are out on in the world. But to hear that there is hard pity and soft pity, I like that. I like it, and it's not coming in a standard fashion. Besides just pulling, and then you eventually get what you wanted. But also like the currency exchange, you can go ahead and get the actual 6-star weapon. If there's a way to get actual 6-star characters, like you can just pick them, that would also be really, really cool. But what they have on the banner, like if you miss the banner, it's okay, they're still in the second and third banner. So I like that a lot. Instead of having to, you miss it 1 month and you don't know when they come back later, like it could be 5 months, it could be a year, you never know, but you get 3 months or 3 banners. You get 3 banners to actually get the character that you wanted or you missed out on. I think that's really, really good. Overall, Arknights Endfield looks fun. It looks like a game that I definitely would play. And it looks like a game you could spend many hours in, and you can still find enjoyment. Even if you're min-maxing, it looks like there's a lot of different type of min-maxing. So overall, I'm impressed with what I saw. Like the game overall, it looks like for sure like a low 9, a high 8. It looks like a very intriguing and adventurous and fun game. So you guys let me know if you've played it already. What do you think about Arknights Endfield? It's your boy KhunShawn. Let me know in the comments below what you think. This was a really cool game, or a really cool video about a really fun game. And I'm interested to see more. So if you guys got other Arknights Endfield videos you want me to check out, link in the description, join the Discord, drop your videos, and I'll be checking them out. Thank you guys for watching. Join the membership link down below. You get early access to all videos. I'm a little sick, so I'm gonna go ahead and go to sleep. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good night. Peace.